All right, up next we have Taurus rising and sun. So this Aries solar eclipse on the 8th is happening in your 12th house. It is conjunct Chiron and Mercury retrograde, which I'm just realizing I forgot to mention for Aries. But anywho, so with an eclipse conjunct Chiron in the 12th house, this can be a little bit more of a, yeah, like a little bit more touchy. Like things in the 12th house generally are hidden, are suppressed, are things that we don't easily integrate into our psyche. And I'm not really getting that from the cards necessarily. Like, I don't think this is a bad time for you, but I do think that it really brings stuff up from the surface. And I think that these eclipses have already done that and have already brought up a lot from our past, because both of these eclipses, the rulers have had their like the planetary rulers have been conjunct Saturn. So in this eclipse, Mars, the ruler of Aries, where the eclipse is conjunct Saturn. It's next to Saturn in the sky. And that tends to bring up things from the past, things that we need to address, that we need to be truthful about. And eclipses in the 8th house, or sorry, the 12th house, can already have that energy as well, where we have to address something from the past. We have to be truthful about something. We have to see things with honesty, with clarity. And so that could come up for you. In particular, if there have been things that you are, okay, there's a number of things. If there are inner conflicts at play, that can really come up with this eclipse. And I feel like this is very strongly associated with the 12th house, because the 12th house has to deal with self-undoing, self-sabotage. And I really feel like all of that comes from internal conflict, where one part of us wants something and then another part of us wants something else. And it's really hard to get everybody on the same page within our own psyche. And so there's something that I'm seeing here with this and with the Five of Wands, where I feel like you guys may be experiencing internal conflict or even external conflict. And one of the words that came up when I saw this card was chaos, like some element of dysfunction, disorganization, entropy, excess of energy without clear order or organization. And that can look like many different things in our lives. But it's almost like we're trying to move forward with this Aries energy. Aries is very much about what's the next right step. Like, I'm super excited and passionate about this. I can't wait to dive into this. And with this being in your 12th house, that energy is something that is not as easily assimilated. It depends on your chart, but as a Taurus rising, there's something about you that likes the known, the familiar, the comfortable, the secure, unless you have strong Uranus energy, which is a whole other story. But you've been kind of pushed out of that comfort zone with Uranus moving through your sign, with Jupiter and Uranus coming together in your first house. And it's really like this sense of, let's break new ground. Let's make a lot of progress and innovate our lives, do things that we've never tried before and that we've maybe always wanted to, but we've had fear or uncertainty around. And I see that with this shapeshifter energy. Like, you guys are in this whole year really where you are, I feel like, radically changing as a person. Maybe your priorities have changed, your goals have changed, your relationships have changed, your perspectives have changed, especially your perspectives and beliefs and your viewpoints on the world with Uranus and Jupiter together. So I really feel like you're going through all this massive change, and it's a little bit of this kind of, again, chaos or upheaval, because change, like, you're a rooted person typically, again, depends on your chart. But Taurus typically likes to root and stabilize. And then when you decide to throw Uranus into that and mix everything up, it's like everything gets kind of thrown into the air and it becomes chaotic. And then we have to figure out where it's all going to land. And I think that that might be some of the energy that you're experiencing with an eclipse in the 12th house. There can be stuff that comes up also internally with you, where you're in this phase where everything is thrown up in the air and you're not quite sure where it's going to land, or you have certain ideas, but maybe those ideas are changing, or you are in a state of transition, essentially. And it can feel at times like scary or intimidating to be in a state of transition when you are somebody who is used to a routine, or is used to living in one place, or is used to, things being a certain way. And so I think one of the things that some Taurus will experience with this eclipse is resistance against this change, or maybe not change. I don't think you're going to resist a change. I just think you're going to resist or have maybe some anxiety around just like the upheaval aspect. And it's like, am I really changing this much, or is this much really going to happen? Because with this eclipse conjunct Chiron, we can usually have our wounds a little bit triggered. So we can feel like we're not as confident, we're not as sure, we're not as independent. We can have stuff come up from our childhood, from the past, again, that kind of haunts us, or we're like, do I really want to do this because like this didn't work out so well for my parents, something like that. So there's a lot of ways that this can manifest, but it's going to draw out a lot of kind of sensitive emotions within you, especially if you have any planets around 19 degrees of Aries, or even the cardinal signs, which is Cancer and Capricorn and Libra. So if you have, planets around those signs, I think a lot can be drawn up emotionally. Like, am I really going to move forward? Am I really going to do this? Am I really going to make all these changes? Maybe I have competing interests and I'm not really sure where to put my attention, energy, and focus. And maybe that's something that I have, done in the past. So for some of you, that could be the case, even though Taurus does like to be relatively consistent. Maybe you've also had just competing goals and priorities, and it's been hard to fully actualize something in a big way. So it can, this kind of chaotic element of things being at cross purposes, I think, can be inside of you or outside of you. Like inside of you would be that you're feeling anxious about some of these things and about some of these changes and have maybe some resistance, or outside of you would be that you have invested your time into a lot of different avenues and maybe there's just not enough time in the day to complete them all. They're literally competing priorities in your life. Outside of you could also be that other people don't agree with you, that you're meeting resistance outside of you from people questioning you, or, again, the inner voice from your past kind of like undermining your confidence in your decisions and how to move forward. So I feel like this eclipse is really about going within, because I think you are, again, on this longer journey with this Three of Wands and the Hermit. You're on this longer journey to really shake up your entire life, discover new aspects of the self, to go on an adventure, explore, and that's only going to be possible if you're equally going within. I think it's going to, like, not that you can't do outside exploration if you're not doing inner ones, but I just think you're not going to get the full benefit out of it without that. And the 12th house is very internal. It's quite isolated. It literally needs more time alone to process things. So you might be more sensitive, more tired, more isolated. And it's really trying to help you, again, go like as far as you're trying to reach out into a new life, into a new adventure. It wants you to reach that way in terms of depth inside of you, so that you are almost like you're just aware of yourself and like why you're doing certain things. And if there's resistance, like resolving that within yourself. I hope this is making sense. I think that you guys are, let's see, with Mercury retrograde also being in the 12th house. Again, I really feel like this has a very like dysfunctional and kind of chaotic energy. Any planet transiting through the 12th house already is a little bit at a deficit, because it is just, the 12th house is kind of a malefic house, like a difficult house, but basically. And then we put, and it's an invisible house. So it's like the planets that are in there are not fully, they're not at full strength, at full capacity, at full health, or they are operating in the shadows in some way. And so Mercury is a planet where we have our head on straight, and we have our plan, and we have our paperwork in line, and we have the logistics planned out. And it's like when it's retrograde and it's in the 12th house, it's really chaotic, and those things might not be up to par. And again, stuff can come up from the past for you to address with this kind of aspect. With Mars, the ruler of this eclipse, being next to Saturn in Pisces in your 11th house, there could be stuff that comes up within your community or your friendships, your relationships, your future goals and stuff that you are needing to look at with a little bit more of a kind of like serious eye, but also be detached from. So the Saturn element is what brings us seriousness. Like, okay, is there going to be an ending to a friendship? Is there going to be a commitment to a different long-term goal? Am I going to have to make some kind of long-term plan that is a little bit more responsibility maybe than before, or taking on a new endeavor that I haven't done before? So in that way, it's quite serious to make these bigger decisions. But it's also in Pisces. So there's a lot of element here of being in flow and not being so attached to the outcome, not being so rigid or expectant, and maybe making the plan and investing in it seriously, but also considering that things could change or things are outside of your control, or there's a need to let something go and to release an expectation or release a connection or something of that nature. So it's this kind of rigid flow, if that makes sense, that we're going through this this form that's there to make sure that we have a plan in place, but then the flow that's there to leave room for spirit to kind of come in and do it, work its own magic. And I think that's also why you have the shapeshifter, because you're in this phase again of shifting and changing so much as a person, that I feel like a lot of this energy is here to be like unpredictable. Like it's serving a purpose of not being defined fully, being in process, being in transition. And it's important to have a plan so that you don't feel like you're floundering, but also not to have too rigid of a plan or attachment and expectations that can also depress you or make things harder for you, because often life doesn't go that way. So we also have Venus and Neptune in the 12th. So technically Neptune's in your, is it in the 12th? No, technically Neptune's in the 11th. Venus is in Aries. So Venus and Neptune are conjunct, and I really feel like this is a time of a lot of like love and nurturing. I did pull, some cards around that, which I'm not even sure if I can show them, but I'll show the heart card. So basically it's a time again of a lot of like self-compassion, love, nurturing. This is a very spiritual experience. If you're in a relationship, I think it could be a time where there's a lot of love between you and somebody else. And it can feel just like you just have a lot of love to give, basically, and a lot of understanding. If there is anything kind of going on, I feel like you're going to have this sensitivity and this gentleness to be understanding around situations that do arise. Because this is also opposite Black Moon Lilith in the 6th house, I think it's possible that some of you, not all of you, will experience to some degree a need to like air things out or talk about things that you've maybe been scared to talk about, things that could like burst a perfect bubble, like addressing things. And I think this is going to be just true for everyone with this eclipse, that a handful of us in each of the rising or sun signs are going to have to, just like be faithful or like honest about something that might not be easy to be honest about, or like talk about the things that we are scared to talk about, or things that we're ashamed of, or that are not accepted as a society. And even just owning that within yourself, or with a partner, with a therapist, with a friend. It's almost like we can gain a lot from having not only the compassion and love for ourselves, but also being willing to speak very plainly about everything that's really in our hearts that comes up around this eclipse. And I think I'll just leave that up to your guys' interpretation, but that is what I'm seeing for you guys for this eclipse. It seems like you guys have maybe a lot going on, like a lot to juggle, a lot of things transitioning in your life. And I think it's going to be important for you to make sure that you are grounded as, an earth sign, that you are self-aware, that you're taking the time to yourself to kind of process some of this stuff, and be honest with those around you and talk about things clearly. So that's what I'm seeing. If you enjoyed this, or if this resonates at all, if you want to add any of your own personal experience, I would really, really love to hear that in the comments down below. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, share with your friends. And if you want a reading, you can catch me at my website down below, Cosmic Clarity Astrology. And I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.